And hello, movie lovers, and welcome to the show. For today's podcast episode, I have my good friend Charlie with me. Say hello to everybody.
Hello.
And today we are actually reviewing Fast and Furious. This is actually the fourth movie out of the Fast and the Furious franchise. And the reason why we're doing this is to match the timeline according to how this franchise is actually being perceived. So that's why we're actually going out of order a little bit. But still, this is going to be a fun podcast episode as usual. Matter of fact, this movie had a budget of $85 million and it made $360.4 million at the box office. Then, of course, this is actually 5 years after escaping from the United States. Dominic Toretto and his new crew, consisting of his girlfriend Letty, Tego, Leo, Rico, Santos, Kara, and Han Lu, are hijacking fuel tanks in the Dominican Republic using heavily modified 1967 and 1968 Chevrolets trucks and 1987 Brick Grand National. Dom suspects that the police are on their trail, forcing the crew to disband and go their separate ways, with Han deciding to go to Tokyo, realizing that he must leave. Dom runs, leaving Letty behind to protect himself from harm. So, here's another thing I want to mention is this. Like, if you bought, like, the Fast and the Furious Blu-ray, there is a nice little montage here where it has, like, a little short film that Vin Diesel himself produced. It's called Los Vengadores. And basically, it's like a prequel story about how he got over to the Dominican Republic and all that stuff, and about how he set up the crew, and how he actually got the two brothers out of prison and stuff like that. I don't know if you saw that.
I didn't watch the prequel movie. I didn't even know there was one. But yeah. I got like the opening when I saw the crew there. I believe this is probably the first technical movie in the timeline that introduces Han. Because Han didn't go to Tokyo until after, in terms of timeline, until after the sixth movie. So right. It's after the sixth movie, but before the post-credit sequence in 6. So this is the first time we actually got to see Han in terms of the timeline. Everybody saw Han in the third Fast and the Furious movie, Tokyo Drift, which we'll cover later on because of timelines. But and then because he was the only one, so he's like, oh, let's call it Fast and the Furious and put Han in it because because I you didn't think it was gonna relate to this franchise until, of course, Vin Diesel showing up at the end. We're like, wait. Why does he show up at the end? Because he's friends of Han. How the heck did he know Han died? That's why the timelines are just the quote Deadpool timelines are just too confusing.
Exactly. But I like the fact that we have some continuity in between the Fast and the Furious movies, which makes it even more believable. Also, too, the characters themselves, despite the whole entire aspect where it's total ridiculousness with the stunts and stuff like that, one of the things I always liked was the character arcs and stuff like that, and about how believable that they actually make those characters and stuff like that. That's why I really cared about them on the emotional level of the characters and stuff. Mm-hmm. That's why I like the Fast and the Furious movies so much. And, I definitely love the stunts and everything whenever you look at this, though, at the very beginning with the whole entire tanker line. Basically, they're trying to steal the gasoline and everything. And I love the whole entire setup because it actually gives you the tone of what we're in store for this movie and everything. And, of course, this is actually, to me, them not taking anything too seriously, unlike the very first Fast and the Furious movie where it basically winds up being like a ripoff of Point Break. This also gets rid of the color schemes of what we saw in the other Fast and the Furious movies, where they're no longer basically doing street racing. This is them doing different types of jobs and stuff like that, which is something that's really nice. And I have to say, I definitely love the color scheme and everything for Brian's car this time, with it just being the blue and everything was just really nice to me.
Yeah.
But as far as Dominic jumping, getting the crew together, and all the crew is jumping from tank to tank to try and take down this gas truck and everything, I thought that was really cool. What did you think about that?
I mean, I love the opening. This is the start of when they get ridiculous, because the sequence with Dom driving under the explosive tanker. You just knew it was going to start of it, because this technically was the movie that got me back into the franchise. Because after the first two, I was like, I don't really care for these anymore. But this one, I was like, okay, I watched it. I enjoyed it because it brought the characters back and it was more action oriented, which I really enjoyed. But I like this some of the funny like this quotes that like that since we've like revisiting it, like when Han showed up for the first time, he's like, I figured we'd be robbing banks by now. It's kind of funny because that's what they do in the next one. They kind of rob many, well, not banks, but they start robbing money. In the next one, they steal from them. So, and then later on, he says, I hear some crazy shit in Tokyo. So that kind of leads up to the timelines. If people are confused after Tokyo Drift came out, and he's like, wait a minute, Han didn't go to Tokyo yet? Like, so that it's just the kind of foreshadowing that they've been doing. And then Letty says, Rio is nice this time of year, which is fitting because that's what the next movie is in Fast 5. They're going to Rio de Janeiro. So I just find this is kind of like these funny little like Easter eggs they keep mentioning in this movie before Fast 5 even happens. They mention Tokyo, Rio, which is where they go next, which I just find this is kind of I just find this is kind of cool in a sense because I've seen the other ones and I know where the story's going, but these little sub hits in these other movies, it's just cool. But then the opening stunt of Dom driving the car under the explosive tanker. I mean, you just know anytime Dom is with Letty, crazy shit's gonna happen.
Right, and not only that, but also Miss Ray is going to happen where with the stunts and everything too, where it gives you that whole entire thing of where you have to take a gasp inside the theater because of the fact that there's some danger elements whenever it regards Letty and everything, because when Dom is doing a heist job, it never goes the way that it's supposed to go. We've seen that in the very first Fast and the Furious movie without Jesse being the front man and everything and actually orchestrating it. Whenever it comes down to Dominic doing plans, it goes down south in a sense. It gets the job done, but there's always some people getting injured. It doesn't go according to how it needs to go down and stuff like that. So I actually felt a sense of danger from Letty. It didn't really feel like a cartoon where basically she's safe, which I really liked and appreciated with this, because then we find out later on what actually happens to her, though, after Dom leaves her. But that little moment of her flying off of the tanker and everything made me scared for her.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like we're missing in the Fast and the Furious franchise in a sense of some type of danger with the main characters.
Yeah.
And everything too. I haven't seen the new movie. I know you have, but that's something I feel like as of right now, without seeing the other movie.
Yeah.
And everything, no sense of danger. It just feels like a cartoon where basically everybody is safe.
Yeah.
But another thing, though, too, is I definitely like the two new characters that we're actually introduced to, which is Leo and Rico, the two brothers.
Yeah, I think it's Rio and I think it's like Tego and the brothers. I forgot the other name.
Tego and Leo.
Yeah.
Tego and Leo and Rico.
Okay.
Yeah, Rico's the brother. But I love the back and forth between the both of them, to be honest with you. And the arguing that they do is just hilarious, to be honest.
I mean, it gets funnier, not in Fast 5 when the two of them bickering, like, dude, man, you need to get a cook. You need to have somebody help you cook. I'm like, dude, your mother is a bad chef. Yeah, we had the same mom. Like, I mean, this, and then the two of them just do it in Spanish. So it's funny how Dom met up with these guys. Like I said, I mean, when Dom gets his team, the team is this, like, I mean, you care for every single one of them. And I agree. Like I said, the danger Letty, like the danger Letty faced in this one, like we're hanging off the side, like that was pretty intense because it felt more cartoonish in the first one, to be honest, with them in danger. Cause it just like at the time was cool. 20 years later, it just felt cartoonish. This one, the effects, like I said, the car, like everything's gotten better as we progress. The stunts, they've gotten better and not as campy as cartoony. Like I said, I know you haven't seen the other one, but I mean, the kind of them in danger. I mean, it's kind of it's gonna be a running gag, a funny gag, in this one, and I'll just leave it at that. So so nobody who hasn't seen Fast 9, I personally recommend it, but it's not for everybody. I'll just leave it at that. But I actually care for the characters, his team, and this one is a more serious tone in this one, and that's what I appreciate.
Yeah, same here as well. And I also feel like too, another thing too is I like how Dominic goes on ahead, goes in front of the tanker truck, and then you see Letty hanging off the side of it, and then he has to go on ahead, push down on the brakes to try and get her to go off, to fly off the truck and then land on his car. I thought that was really good. And then of course, I liked how I think it was Dominic that winds up going into the truck, going inside the truck itself and said, "Look, I know that you want your gas and everything, but do you value your life?" or something like that. You need to stop the truck or something like that.
I don't think he ever got out of his car.
Okay, I couldn't remember.
I think it was the truck driver jumps out with his iguana.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Dom so once Dom broke off the second second set of gas tanks for the two brothers, and then to get after Letty got in the car, the truck driver saw the huge steep hill and he was like, "I'm out of here," and he takes his iguana and he luckily rolls over. He rolls over into grassy, not grassy areas, but sandy areas. I'm like, if you're moving pretty high speed, you could get seriously hurt. But anyway, truck driver runs out and he leaves the car. Just, you know what? F it, I'm out of here.
It's like, have at it.
And that's when Dom does his he drives backwards to get a good steady pace to time it to drive his car under the exploding tanker.
Exactly. And then of course, then after that winds up happening, 3 months later, Dom is now residing in Panama City, and he gets a call from his sister Mia, who tells him that Letty has been murdered. Dom heads back to Los Angeles to attend her funeral. But before we get into that, we actually see a cutscene with Brian chasing down this other guy as an FBI agent. So now we know that he's actually an FBI agent again. He has his shield back, and he's right back into where he was at the very first film. But it's more, I love the stunt work when it comes down to him chasing the guy down, and then of course the guy jumping out the window, and the rooftop scene was definitely really good. Yeah. And then finally he makes the arrest.
Sorry, was he an FBI agent in the first one? I thought he was a
he was a cop.
I thought he was a police officer, not an FBI agent.
No, but what I'm getting at though is the fact that pretty much everything he was going for in the first movie, he now has.
Okay, gotcha.
Because remember, if he made the arrest on Toretto, on Dominic, he would have been an FBI agent. But because of the fact that he let him go, that didn't happen.
Makes sense. Okay. Sorry, I didn't cut you off. I was just confused.
No, it's fine. These timelines get too confusing. But it just shows that there's some redemption for Brian, especially after the events of Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah.
Now he's an FBI agent after those events.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then there's also some years after that, though, some gaps of what Brian might have been going through before that. Yeah. But, he's back. He has his shield again, and he makes the arrest. He goes into the FBI building with the suspect intact. And then, of course, that's when the other douchebag
Bosniak.
Bosniak goes on ahead. He goes up to Brian and starts trying to humiliate him in front of everybody, and then Brian winds up flipping him over and then punching him in the face.
I think it was after he punched him in the face after he took Mia. The Stasiak went and caught Mia, and then to question her, and then Brian it was a little bit later on where he actually broke his nose.
That's right. I think he slams his face into the wall or something.
Yeah, he smacks into the wall after Stasiak was pissed off because Brian called up saying, "Hey, hey, I'm from Forensic. I need Stasiak to sign something just to get him away from Mia because Brian he still has regret doing what he did to Mia. but I think he was investigating David Park, and
Yeah, he was.
and that's when he found Toretto hanging David Park out of the out of the window.
But yeah, but then also too, then after that it goes into the whole funeral aspect. Before that,
yeah, that was way before the notice broke, and they had the funeral for Letty.
right?
And then Dom, of course, he's at the funeral, but far away because I mean it's typical.
Right, because he's thinking that the FBI is going to be there, and of course Brian is there, making sure, seeing if Dominic is actually going to show up. They find out he doesn't show up, and that leads off to where basically he tries to talk to Mia. Brian tries to talk to Mia a little bit and stuff like that, and then after that it breaks into Mia going into her home, and then that's when Dominic shows up.
I think it was that. I think Dom shows up before Brian talks to Mia. I think because it's like Dom. It was right after the. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. But Dom shows up after the funeral to ask Mia, take me to the crime scene, and that's where Dom finds out about nitro meth.
Right, and I like how he's trying to put things together, and you see the scene being played out in his mind as like he's a detective.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, but he sees the tires, he sees the tire marks, he's seen this before, with all his life racing cars and things like that. Nothing surprises him at that time. And he sees where the car has landed, then he sees basically where the guy winds up shooting her. And then after that, we wind up seeing the outcome of Letty, supposedly. And I thought that was a very big emotional scene because we actually have that emotional attachment to the character, especially with the first film.
Yeah.
So I definitely liked that. It made me care about Letty. And then seeing him being emotionally distraught over it and pissed off over it. And then that's when we wind up seeing like the next day where Brian winds up trying to investigate everything. And then he winds up seeing Dominic hanging the guy over the building outside the window.
Yeah.
And he said, then that's whenever he says, no one's going to get in my way. If you get in my way, I'm going to kill you.
Pretty much.
And I'm not going for verbatim or anything, but then, after that, he winds up letting the guy go. Then Brian winds up catching him before he falls down out on the ground and everything. So I thought that was really, the stunt works, like I said, really works in this film because I actually felt a sense of danger for the villain.
Yeah.
So, and then he gets then of course, after that winds up happening, and he also the other guy, get this. Okay. So basically the funeral and examined the crash and finds traces of nectarine, like you said, on the ground. He visits the only car mechanic that sells Necker. That's also when Dominic winds up going to the mechanic, and it leads him over to David Park. Remember the guy that is hanging over the window? So that's where he actually got David Park's name, and that's also leads into Brian finding out who David Park is. And then after that, Brian is trying to track down a Mexican drug lord named Arturo Braga. His search leads him to David Park, and he tracks him down using an illegal modification record on his car. And then we already talked about that. That's my notes.
Yeah.
And then he hangs out from the window. Brian saves Park, and Park becomes the FBI's new informant. Park gets Brian into a street race. Brian selects a 2002 Nissan Skyline GTR R34. Which is, like I said, this color schemes for this car look really awesome. But I like how he's selecting the cars, though, and the FBI agent's like, well, what car do you want? And she shows him all the cars. He goes, I want them all. And then he has to also put a tracking device in his car, though, too, so that way it doesn't look like he's... And this reminds me of straight up from Too Fast, Too Furious at that point. And everything. I'm like, okay, so we're back to doing that again because of the fact that the FBI wants to go on ahead and track Brian, making sure that nothing goes awry, just trying to keep a track on their agents just to make sure he's okay. Then he, with modified Park Skyline and the 2007 Nissan GTR, Dom modifies his 1970 Chevrolet SS for the race. Giselle Yesher, the who's also part of Braga's crew, reveals that the winner will become the last driver on a team that traffics heroin between the Mexico-United States border. Dom wins by bumping Brian's car while it is in nitro, making him lose control. Brian uses power as an FBI agent to arrest another driver, Dwight Mueller. Now, here's the thing. Dwight is one of those unusual characters that we see in this film. Because, I remember when he says, Dwight's going to win. He always refers to himself like in third person. And then we see him at this party and everything with these women. And he has this foot fetish type of thing. And then Brian comes banging on the door of the FBI. And he has heroin, crystal meth in his hand. And he goes, Dwight never touched that. Dwight just did. But what did you think of that scene as when they're arresting him?
I wanted to go back to talk about some of the other stuff that you mentioned, like the scene when the rooftop sequence. I thought that was a cool sequence.
Yeah.
But this also was the start of the iconic hero. Somebody crashes through windshield to tackle somebody, and I thought that was kind of funny. Like Brian had to crash through glass to tackle the guy, and then that's what seems to happen in the XV movies, like Fast Five. Dom's on top. The Rock crashes through some of that just to get to the guy. So I think that was kind of cool. I don't believe Braga was ever mentioned until after David Park after David Park got captured.
Yeah, that's when he becomes the FBI foreman.
Yeah, for the FBI. I think the only reason Brian found out about David Park was because he was looking for car imports.
Right.
And it was that's how he picked up on where David Park is. And then I like Dom threatening the mechanic and like him with the torture, because you haven't seen Dom do this in a long time, so that was kind of cool. I kind of had a feeling Brian was going to take out Dwight somehow, because Dwight was already part of the team, and he's like, right. Oh, Dwight, what's up, numsack, or whatever, or he was just talking so much crap. He just knew Brian was going to get him in the car race. Brian has improved as these movies are progressing in racing, and Brian was going to win that race. Dom cheated, hence the funny gag throughout the rest of them, throughout Fast Five. Hey, you're not going to cheat this time, are you? He's like, you got to let that go. So it's just the funny gag between them for the race.
But also too, I like the whole entire NOS scene where basically Dominic goes on ahead, hits the NOS. And Brian goes, "You're too early, Dominic." And he hits the NOS, trying to pass him up. And then that's whenever Dom goes on ahead and hits him in the back of the car, causing him to slide sideways and everything, too. But you can definitely tell that Brian was about to win. And basically, we already know that Toretto has beef. He has a reason to be there. And everything. He doesn't care about Braga. He just cares about one objective, trying to find Letty's murder. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care about anything else but that. So whatever thing that Brian's trying to work on, he doesn't care about. He just wants vengeance for Letty. So you have two characters who have different motivations in this film, which is something that I really liked.
Mm-hmm. And this is also the first movie we introduced to Giselle, who's a big part of Dom's team later on. And then I just find it funny how the Campos, he keeps mentioning Braga in third person, kind of like Dwight mentions in third person. And it's fitting because Braga mentions himself in third person because he is Braga. So that's just a little pickup of how easily it is to pick up that whatever he's saying, it's coming from Braga himself. And it just kind of shows how kind of, besides Brian, how kind of stupid the FBI is.
Right. And also, too, there's a lot of misdirection with that, though, too. Because it does look convincing. It really does look like it's convincing enough that the guy in the sharp suit and everything is Braga. It does look like that. There's a conception of the fact that it could be this guy, but they're doing judging him based off stereotypes rather than doing the whole entire investigation of who Braga is and everything. But also, too, if it wasn't for Brian trying to get the fingerprints off the glass and everything, they would never have guessed that was actually Braga and everything. But we'll get to that in a few minutes, though, on the whole entire misconception, though, of the FBI and the misdirection that Brago did, because that was really clever on his part on how he made the FBI misjudge. But I definitely have to say I like the GPS idea of this race.
Yeah,
I definitely like that aspect. That was something new that they brought into it. This whole entire scene definitely works. And then Brago also too, Vin is not Vin, but Dominic is actually convinced that Brago needs that heroin that they but we're gonna get into that later on too. But I'm kind of jumping around a little bit. I'm sorry about that.
I want to mention the club sequence. I love the banner when after like Brian shows up. I'm like, I'm not surprised to see you here, Brian. And he's like, hey, you want to have a party? Yeah, you want to have a good time? Yeah, let's have a great time. So they're chatting with each other. He goes, he's like, well, Brian's like, yeah, I did some time. And then Dom's like, who'd you see down there? I don't know. Lots of names, lots of faces. And Dom's like, when I do time, I do real time. So they're kind of taking shots at each other. And then Campos is like, you two know each other. And then Dom's like, he used to date my sister. And then Campos is like, you're a lucky man. You're still breathing. And then Dom just has that little, like, that weird laugh. I thought that scene was hysterical. Like, just between each other and about taking shots at each other. I'm like, you're still breathing.
Same. I thought that jived up really well. I definitely like the club scene a whole lot better than Too Fast, Too Furious, to be honest with you. I felt a little bit more open compared to how closed off it was with Too Fast, Too Furious. And I also like how Brian is over there just shooting pool, and then you see Dominic just look at him with that go to hell look. And then he goes upstairs to get himself a Corona.
Yep.
And everything. But I definitely liked how it sets up. I like the jabbing back and forth and stuff like that. It definitely adds like some canon stuff that we got from the very first film. So I definitely like that. And also too with Capo saying that you're a lucky man that you're still alive. I definitely like the humor with it.
Yeah.
Then of course, after that winds up happening, the team meets up with Braga's personal henchman, Phoenix, and Dom notices that Phoenix drives the Torino the mechanic described. They drive across the border using tunnels to avoid detection. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the whole entire tunnel thing.
Yeah.
Because I definitely liked how if they're spotted outside of the lineup and everything, that's it. That's pretty much game over for them.
Yeah.
They get spotted. I definitely like that idea. I loved how the tunnels is actually split. Definitely liked how the tunnels are actually done in this. To where it's like an open garage type of thing where they actually push a button and then it just lifts up. So yeah, I thought that was pretty neat. What about you?
I thought that sequence was like I said, the stunts in this one have improved over the last 3 movies that came out, and like I thought like that whole the Mexican like that the tunnels, I thought that was really cool, made for an intense sequence. Like you just knew this is not the first time this is going to be used, which I appreciate. Now it was not just a one-off, which I like, but and then Dom's vendetta for Phoenix or whatever kind of almost cost him a little bit, but yeah, I thought that sequence was awesome.
I did too. I'm glad that they did like a callback to that scene later on.
Yeah,
and what we get, because I was hoping that we would go back to it and have like a speed chase through the tunnel.
Yeah.
So I was actually happy to see that. I remember seeing that in theaters and just being wowed by it. Whenever it first came out. But then of course, learns that and that himself. Oh yeah, this is also too. Dom confronts Phoenix and learns that he kills the driver after their work is done, and that he himself killed Liddy when she tried to escape him. A standoff uses through though not before Dom creates a diversion by loosening the cars with nitrous. What did you think of that?
I thought that was that was a big action sequence, and that's what kind of like got me like, okay, it's the spark that the franchise needed when Dom did that with the unloosening, because Dom knew what was up. Like Dom, and then he unloosened it, and he's like, I'm gonna enjoy what happens next, and then all the cars blew up. I mean, that was a pretty cool action sequence. And it shows Dom getting shot in the back, like you see it, and then he got shot, and you hear Brian drop the first F-bomb I've ever heard in the entire Fast and Furious franchise. Dom, get in the effing car, let's go.
Right. And, you know, that also gives me another thing that I really liked about it was the sense of danger for Dominic now.
Yeah.
It made me have that sense of no one is safe in this film, which I feel like is another thing that's missing is it feels like that Dominic is like OP, like can't be hurt.
Yeah.
And this one, it really feels like he can be hurt with a bullet and stuff like that, which I really liked. It made me care about the fact that, oh my God, is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? Kind of feel to it. But of course, you know, he's going to make it and everything later on. But you know what I'm saying? For a first-time viewer who's watching this and caring about these characters and stuff like that and seeing them grow from the first film, you care about them enough to where it's like, oh my God, is he actually going to make it? Is the bullet did the bullet actually come out of him or what? Yeah. That's my point. Yeah. But then, you know, then they wind up pulling over and they find out, hey, they have heroin. Yeah. So basically they go to this lockup. And I like how Brian just looks at Dominic, and he's like, you know, you owe me a 6-second car, right?
10-second car.
10-second car. Yeah. And so Dominic goes on ahead and busts out the window. He goes, here you go. Yeah. So I definitely like that. It was a callback to the very first film. You also have Brian also making the FBI agent scanning for fingerprints still. That's still going on because she has to get it from 2 different places and forensics and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool on how they actually explained that it's going to take me a while to get the fingerprints because it's going to come from 2 separate forensics places and everything. Yeah. So I thought that was really good. And it actually feels believable. So and it's not like, oh, by the way, Brian, we got your fingerprints and everything. So you can go in and catch this guy now because we've seen TV shows that do that, CSI, NCIS, you know, but it's never, but you know, I definitely liked how that goes. And then Dom finds out another thing though, too, I want to mention is that Brian and Dom drive back to LA and hide the heroin, like I said, at a police impound lot. And they pick up a modified 2008 Subaru Impreza WRX STI with a hatchback. They subsequently drive to Dom's house where they reunite with Mia. And this is also where the drama unfolds.
Yeah, I don't think it was Dom's house because it looked like it was in the forest because obviously the FBI is still watching Mia's house.
Sure, it could be a safe house or something.
I think it was that, or it was like something Brian obviously knew. It definitely did not look like because Toretto definitely didn't seem to be staying anywhere. So I think it was either Brian or a safe house or something because Brian was the one that called Mia, and then Mia's like, well, I'm gonna have to stitch it up. It's gonna hurt. And Dom's like, you're going to enjoy this, are you? A little bit.
And then, you know, Dominic is actually already diving into his Chinese food. And Mia's just looking at him. And she goes, really? You're going to do that? Because without saying grace? What about family? And, you know, of course, he treats Brian right now like as an outsider. He doesn't treat him as family because of what happened in the very first film. No. And things like that. So, of course, I understand why he wouldn't say grace in front of him and stuff like that because he's an outsider now. He's no longer considered family or anything. So, I definitely get that perspective. And then we wind up finding out whenever Dominic is actually going through Letty's stuff. Yeah. That Letty was actually working with Brian to try and take down Braga. Yeah. And
to get Dom to come home.
Yeah. But we don't find all he knows is all Dominic thinks is the fact that he was the sole reason why Letty died. Yeah. He doesn't understand that Letty was just trying to get him to come home and try and work out a deal to where he's not wanted. Yeah. And Brian gets his ass kicked really bad in this one, you know, but I definitely liked the fact that, you know, you have 2 people who have conflicts with each other that comes to a head and everything. And it reminds me of The Rock and, you know, and Vin Diesel fight that they had, but in a sense, because of the fact that you have 2 people who I know it's not on that brother aspect, but still you actually have two conflicted characters that both don't like each other, and they're fighting against each other, but they're evenly matched. With this one, Brian is outside his weight class. He's a featherweight compared to Dominic.
Yeah, like, I mean, you could call that, but I don't. I mean, I wouldn't say it's that level because Brian doesn't get a shot in at all. Like, he doesn't. He's now the Dom. That one that's been brewing for a while, and that build up was great. This one was just the kind of like Dom is heated. It was just a heat of the moment kind of a thing.
Right, two brothers argument, basically.
Yeah, it was just an argument in a sense, because Dom wasn't gonna kill Brian because he needs Brian to help him out or whatever. So it's just I knew. Right. I mean, in a sense, you could say that, but I guess I wouldn't because I think it would be like from the Dom that one. That's just two adversaries because they're building up because they were gonna fight, and then they both getting shots in. That one was more of an entertaining fight. This one was just a small scruffle. In a sense.
But also, too, Brian does try to do like an MMA move where he basically gets his feet and try to pretty much try to get Dominic to submit and tap out, which also causes Dominic to lift him up and then slam him on the ground. And so I definitely like that move. There are some aspects to him being an FBI agent to where he knows how to actually take care of himself in self-defense, but still not in some type of capacity to take down Dominic.
Yeah.
But still entertaining. I definitely like the fight between him and everything. I thought that was really good. And then, of course, at this point, Dominic, or was it Dominic or was it just Brian that goes out? No. It was just Brian that goes into the FBI headquarters now and trying to work out a deal to where Dominic
goes
free once they get Brago.
Yeah.
Because Brago's the main target.
Yeah. Because Brian's trying to keep Dom out of it until from his side. And that's what sets up the meeting. After Brian sets it up, that's when Dom calls Giselle because Giselle gave Dom her number to call him. And she's like, I wish it wasn't under these circumstances. And he's like, we want to one up. Like, we trade you the cat, you give us money, in a sense, kind of like the normal, like, typical normal deal. And he goes, I want Braga there because, like, then I know it's true, which is funny. Because like that, the guy that plays Braga, John Ortiz, he's so good at playing villains. He's very typecast. This had the feeling of a Miami Vice, like because you figure, okay, John Ortiz his character's going, all right, he's gonna change the deal at the last minute so he can have his guys there, and it felt like it was going that way, but it kind of didn't. So
right.
So, but yeah, I felt that, but I think John Ortiz just plays a good villain, so it was just fitting. But and then they go to that Brian is in charge supposedly, and right before the deal goes sour, he's like, hey man, I'm gonna give you a 10-second car, and he goes just like old times.
And then at that point, though, too, that's when of course they go on ahead. They meet up with Campos, and everything, and with the heroin, trying to get the $6 million in cash and things like that, and then then we wind up seeing the whole entire deal go south at this point.
Well, because they screwed up.
Yeah, big time. And then at that point, whenever they're doing the dropout point, that's when the Prince come back and everything, and that's when they say, hey, look, Braga Campos is actually Brago and everything. Yeah. It's not that other guy. And then I think they winded up shooting that other guy.
They arrested him because right when the girl mentions, we got confirmation, but I'm waiting to see the image. Stasiak trying to put the big boy pants on. He's like, you know what? We got confirmation. We're going in. However, Dom and Brian, like, you know what I'm thinking, right? He ain't Braga. Like, Dom and Brian easily knew he wasn't Braga. And then I think they didn't know it was Campos at the time until Campos gave him the, hey, what's up, like, kind of look after the FBI came in there. And Campos almost killed Giselle. But luckily Dom saved her. Hence, yeah. So and then Dom's out of there, and that's when the FBI was like, you know how much trouble you're in, O'Connor. When the FBI clearly screwed up, and it wasn't O'Connor that screwed up because he didn't give them the confirmation. It's again them trying to put the blame on Brian when he didn't do a damn thing wrong.
Right, and this makes like the third time that he's trying to do something right, and they're trying to force the blame on him. Because the first time was in Fast and the Furious, and then Too Fast, Too Furious, and now this one.
Yep.
With everything. And I did another thing too. Let me talk about Campos though for a minute. I really like him as a villain. I thought he was the best villain that we had compared to the second one, because I didn't really feel like the second villain was that menacing or anything like that. I felt like this one was like as Miami Vice as you can get, with a layer of a character that wasn't like a paint by numbers kind of villain. So I definitely like that. He wasn't wooden at all. He had some layers to him and things like that. So I definitely love Campos / Braga.
Yeah, I thought he was a good villain.
Yeah.
As well. I definitely agree with that. I think he's been the better one. I mean, the guy from Too Fast, Too Furious, he was I just couldn't get over the guy's terrible hair. Like, seriously.
Right. And then Braga is revealed as then of course escapes. This is one, of course, where we actually have that nice little speed chase and everything through Mexico.
I thought that was great, but I want to get to it before, like, because Brian finds out that he's in Mexico, and that's when the FBI's jurisdiction it ends. So then Brian goes back to Dom's house and see Dom working on the iconic Charger, the iconic car. And then Brian's like, Dom's like, I ain't bringing anybody back. I know, I'm going with you. And then Dom's like, all right. And he's like, and then Brian's like, you might want to fix that in a car. Oh, Buster became a gearhead. And that's when Mia walks in, sees him. She's just distraught. And then that's when Brian gets back up with Mia. And that's pretty much, yeah. So you knew the two of them were back together after that moment.
Right, exactly. And then that's when we get everything else set up with Felix and everything too. This is also where we wind up seeing. Let me go look at my notes real quick. Sorry about that. Yeah, he ends up escaping with Phoenix. Yeah, and the pair flee to Mexico. And of course, this is also where we see Braga giving the money over to the priest for protection and things like that. And then, of course, that's when we see Dominic and Brian enter into Mexico, and that's when we have that great scene where it's basically a race through Mexico. And I definitely love how real it actually looks. There's no color schemes here. Whenever they're pressing the NOS, there's none of that like Star Wars force field type of thing that we normally get with the first two films. So I definitely liked how they set that up. What about you?
Yeah, I thought that that whole chase sequence was really cool. Well done. Like Campos or Braga running his mouth the whole time. And this is the one where you actually see Dom shoot the tires with a shotgun, which makes the cars like flip and and like that. And that's what you're supposed to do. Shoot the tires. Not shoot the car, shoot the tires. Because once you get rid of the tires, then there we go.
Exactly. And then once that winds up happening, then we go into the whole entire desert scene. Mm-hmm. Yet again, going into the tunnels.
Mm-hmm.
And everything. But of course, we also have Braga with Brian at that time, don't we? Or is that
Braga's in the car with Brian because he's running his mouth. I'm like, oh, do you know where the tunnel is? Hey, where your boys at? Do you want my GPS or some along those lines? He's like running until Brian just punches him in the face.
And then after that winds up happening, then you see them going outside the jump. Of course, we actually see this other scene where basically these other cars are chasing after Dominic and everything too. So they're going through this whole entire thing, and he's trying to catch up with of course, with Braga's main baddie and everything too, Phoenix, and stuff like that. But I liked how the stunt worked in the tunnel, because then we wind up seeing you see like a dead end on Dominic's side, so he knows that he has to go ahead and jump out. So he winds up jumping into the other guy's car and everything, and then he throws the guy out, and then that leads into them coming out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And basically bringing them back on the United States soil.
Pretty much, yeah.
So to where they can actually arrest them.
And
now,
Phoenix gets completely totaled by Dom. And then the car's F-bomb.
Oh, yeah. I was going to, you know what? I didn't notice that the first time I watched it.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, I saw this movie other times too and everything, but just going on to the review, I'm like, that's funny. He got killed by an F-bomb.
I know.
Which I thought was hilarious.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
And then Brian's hurt because it looked like either Brian didn't get shot. I think he was just, or he might have. I don't know.
No, I think what it was is just the damage from the car whenever it flipped over with Braga.
Oh, yeah,
because remember,
him in the side because he was definitely bleeding.
Yeah, because remember, Braga was still inside the car.
Yeah.
So that's what wound up happening. It was just the damage from the car, and then of course Brian being injured, and then of course we see Dom trying to tell him, "Look, Brian, it's gonna be okay. Just put some pressure on. You're wounded and everything. It's gonna be okay." And then you see Brian saying, "Hey, look, Dom, you just need to go ahead and go." He goes, "No, I'm tired of running." And then next thing you know, you see the whole entire thing play out in court, where it's like, well, Dominic went on ahead and got arrested Braga. He brought justice and everything, and therefore he should be acquitted from all charges that he had. And then the judge ruled against him. He said one wrong does not make a million wrongs right. He said he's going to have to do 25 to life without a chance of parole.
Yeah. But I also before like the cops showed up, Brian's like, "Hey Dom, I would have won that race, right?" And then Dom's like, "You hit your head pretty hard."
Yeah, I forgot about that part.
I mean, it's a running gag, and it doesn't stop until probably, I don't know. I think probably either the 5th or the beginning of the 6th movie. I don't remember.
Right, but you know what though? I don't feel like that was actually forced at all in this movie though. Because they do it here and there.
Yeah,
they don't do it. They do it sporadically. They don't do it in every single scene to where it's actually forced. It's like, okay, we get the joke. Can we just move on? With this, they do it in different scenes, and they don't hit you over the head with it, which is something I appreciate from it. Because they could have done that, but they didn't.
No.
Then, of course, we get the whole entire prison scene where Dominic is going into the bus, and then next thing you know it, we see Brian and the gang trying to get him off the bus and everything, and that's when the movie ends.
Yeah.
And okay, so there's something I really wanted to touch on was this. I don't blame Brian one bit for turning his back on the FBI. Because he was a cop twice, basically. Well, not really a cop, but he was actually in Too Fast, Too Furious, working with the cops, working with the feds, gets backstabbed over there, gets backstabbed in the first movie, and then gets backstabbed as an FBI agent. He got backstabbed 3 times.
Yeah. And,
they backed out on that deal with Dominic and everything. So I don't blame him one bit for saying, you know what, screw this. I'm done doing this. I tried playing by the book. It's just not working. And also, too, I like what Mia says to Brian, though. He goes, "Are you sure you're not the good guy playing the bad guy?"
Yeah. Or wow, Brian is I don't know. It's hard to say. Are you really the good guy that's really disguised as the bad guy, or are you the bad guy disguised as the good guy? And Brian's like, I don't know. But I think
that's something I really like.
Him making the decision to you know what, screw them. They didn't do anything to help me out, so I'm helping my friend out. And that's what sets up Fast 5. And I loved how Fast 5 started. Picked up right when this one left off, and that's how you do a true sequel.
Yeah, I'm glad they didn't pick it off where they already escaped with Dominic. It's been a couple of months, a couple of years later. I'm glad it went right into that scene about how they got Dominic off the bus. So I'm definitely happy about how they set that up for Fast 5.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but this movie is overly. To be honest with you, this is a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun watching this movie again and revisiting it. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, I did too. I thought it was a great, entertaining movie. Like that again, this is the one that got me back into the franchise, and like it's the spark this franchise needed, and then the next one just like you got The Rock. You got The Rock to join this franchise. Like I said, then it's just like straight up like it's like getting The Rock to be the guy that hunts these guys. I mean, it's just perfect person to do it because The Rock is just awesome. But yeah, I liked what this one did. It went a more serious note, but yet the stunts are kind of ridiculous. But that's what the fun part of this franchise is. It got rid of the campiness of the first two and the third one as well. But I mean, I really like when you brought everybody back. And now it's going on a whole different thing because this is the first movie in this franchise where Vin Diesel was producer of. Because after they did Tokyo Drift, they went up to Vin is like because after Tokyo Drift looked like this franchise was dead. Then Universal went to Vin and was like, all right, we want you to produce this, like produce the next ones going forward. And then Vin and then that's when Vin went to Paul Walker, and when Vin Diesel wasn't even done telling him, I want you in this one, I want you back in this. Paul like interrupted him immediately in the meeting, like during a speech. It's like, dude, I'm in. That's what really started the friendship between Paul Walker and Vin Diesel. It was right before this movie, and it definitely shows.
Most definitely. And you know what? I'm glad that you did some research on that because I was trying to do some research before the film. I mean, before we did this review to find out when Vin became the producer of it. So I wasn't sure it was after Tokyo Drift or after this one. So
it was definitely after Tokyo Drift, but before, I think he produced this one, and this was the Fast and Furious 4. Was the first one that's what changed it because you got Justin Lin back, yeah.
Okay. So that's everything I wanted to say as far as this movie goes. This movie's a lot of fun. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend that you guys check it out. This is the fourth one out of the franchise, but also the third film out of the timelines that we're doing. So if you go on ahead and just follow us at Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite on Facebook and underneath the same name on Instagram, and then of course follow us also on Pinterest as well underneath the same name over there. If you want to, go on ahead and get yourself an audio only podcast episode of all these episodes that we do, where you guys get your podcast from. If you guys want to donate to the page and everything, all you have to do is go to Movie Lovers Unite. Go to GoFundMe.com/Movie Lovers Unite. Movie Lovers Podcast. I'm sorry about that. I screwed that up. But yeah, that's where you can actually donate $5, maybe $10 if you want to keep the lights here on. Over here at Movie Lovers Unite, just go down to GoFundMe.com/Movie Lovers Podcast. Then, of course, if you're a sponsor and want to reach out to us, you just go on ahead, head over to our email at movieloversunite@gmail.com. And then for all your intimate needs and wants, just go to movieloversunite.com. If you want to follow us on Twitter, go on ahead, do so by going to Movie Lovers Unit and underneath the same name on Stereo as well, because we do a couple of Stereo shows from time to time. And then that's all everywhere that you guys can go on ahead and follow us at. And then, of course, go on ahead. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Share this with everybody. Let everybody know about Movie Lovers Unite. And always, until next time, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I can't wait to do this again. Thank you, Charlie, for joining me as always, being my co-captain for these reviews and everything. It's always a pleasure to have you on. And always, until next time, guys, bye-bye.